comprehensive proposal for a ceasefire. We're going to be talking about that right now.
And we're taking you live to the White House, where, as promised, President Biden is speaking now about the situation in the Middle East. Let's listen in.
Before I begin my remarks, I just want to say a few words about what happened yesterday in New York City. The American principle.
Trump was never actually charged with the campaign finance or influencing the election crimes, just straight bullshit. No. Trump was charged for defrauding the not defrauding population, for falsely labeling retainer fees that were actually not retainer fees at all, but instead Michael Cohen's hush money repayment. Hush money that Michael Cohen paid porn star Stormy Daniels with the interest of engaging in the election. Hiding the truth from the public. Trump was charged for falsifying documents that were falsified in an effort to close off the paper trail of Michael Cohen paying a porn star hush money because she was about to come out with a story about how she had sex with Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his campaign thought that this would hurt his election chances. They were wrong. I don't think it would have hurt Donald Trump's election chances, but that doesn't change the reality that they still thought that and wanted to pay her hush money. And that's it. All right, let's move on to Joe Brandon. Don't worry, if you're upset about how much I dunked on Trump today, you are going to personally love when I shit on Joe Brandon.
That no one is above the law was reaffirmed. Donald Trump was given every opportunity to defend himself. It was a state case, not a federal case, and it was heard by a jury of 12 citizens, 12 Americans, 12 people like you, like millions of Americans who served on juries. This jury is chosen the same way every jury in America is chosen. It was a process that Donald Trump's attorney was part of. The jury heard 5 weeks of evidence, 5 weeks. And after careful deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. They found Donald Trump guilty.
He's like, nobody's above the law unless you're Benjamin Netanyahu, in which case you are absolutely above the law and we will defend you. Only Israel as a nation state is above the law, and all of those who are leading the helm on their supposed quote-unquote crimes of genocide will be defended tooth and nail.
On all 34 felony counts. Now he'll be given the opportunity, as he should, to appeal that decision just like everyone else has that opportunity. That's how the American system of justice works. And it's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict. Our justice system has endured for nearly 250 years. And it literally is the cornerstone of America, our justice system. The justice system should be respected, and we should never allow anyone to tear it down. It's as simple as that. That's America. That's who we are. And that's who we'll always be, God willing. Now to another issue.
His brain didn't kick in. I sped him up. So he sounds like normal.
I want to give an update on my efforts to end the crisis in Gaza. For the past several months, my negotiators of foreign policy and intelligence community and like have been relentlessly focused, not just on a ceasefire that would inevitably be fragile and temporary, but on a durable end of the war. That's been the focus, a durable end of this war. One that brings all the hostages home, ensures Israel's security, creates a better day after in Gaza without Hamas in power, and sets the stage for political settlement that provides a better future for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Now, after intensive diplomacy...
I like you a lot, but how can you say... I like you a lot, but you can say except Netanyahu, but how could USA possibly hold him accountable? Dude, you are not going to hold me accountable at the top of the hour, especially at 4:52, by thinking that this is a fucking adequate way to debate me at 4:52. Okay? That's literally 8 minutes before the top of the hour. At this point, it's such a fucking swing and a miss, dude. Okay? A swing and a goddamn miss. Yeah. Fuck is right. At least come at me with this fucking bullshit like 3 minutes after. You know what I mean? You got so horny to catch me slipping that you slipped and tripped and fell. Okay? Your dick's out now. You slipped out with your dick out. Don't come at me at the top of the hour with this bullshit. Here's a 3-minute ad break coming to you right now. Okay? I did not fail the QTE. Exactly. I fucking nailed the QTE. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Andrew Filer, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. There's a 3-minute ad break coming for you now if you're not lucky enough to get gifted a sub.
Carried out by my team. My many conversations with leaders of Israel, Qatar, and Egypt, and other Middle Eastern countries. Israel has offered a comprehensive new proposal. It's a roadmap to an enduring ceasefire and the release of all hostages. This proposal has been transmitted by Qatar to Hamas. Today, I want to lay out its terms for the American citizens and for the world. This new proposal has 3 phases. The first phase would last for 6 weeks. Here's what it would include: a full and complete ceasefire, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza, release of a number of hostages, including women, the elderly, the wounded, in exchange for the release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. There are American hostages who would be released at this stage, and we want them home. Additional, some remains of hostages who have been killed would be returned to their
Shot in front of W. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs.
families, bringing some degree of closure to that terrible grief. Palestinians, civilians would return to their homes and...
It's so crazy because the 3-phase proposal, it might as well been written by fucking Ismail Haniyeh, okay? By Yahya Sinwar. Because it is fucking almost identical. Biden's proposal, a permanent end to hostilities, reconstruct Gaza, Bibi's office, Israel will continue its war until all objectives are achieved. I'm not sure how to read this because about a week ago, Bibi explicitly told negotiators it's outside their mandate to end the war. Obviously, this wasn't really Israel's proposal. Either Biden changed the proposal's details as a maneuver to pressure Israel, or it's cynical bullshit. I think I'm cautiously leaning towards the former. Like this proposal, this 3-phase program, many people will look to and say, oh my God, how fucking sick. This is such a cool way to try and end the war, right? If you're like a Brandon fan, if you're a personal Brandon fan, you look at the situation and you say, this is relatively close, or this is a decent way to, at least in the short term, stop the fucking hostilities. When in fact, perhaps you would be shocked to find out Hamas proposes 3-stage 135-day truce and hostage deal leading to war's end. Where was that? When was that suggested? Oh, that's right, the 7th of February. How can you talk about this genocide so casually? Perhaps it is because I've been talking about this genocide for the past 9 months now, every single day, for approximately 5 to sometimes 8, sometimes 10 hours every fucking day. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? Does this mean that, like, this was a reasonable proposal when Hamas proposed it? Was this a reasonable proposal when Hamas proposed it, but people refused to recognize that, but now they're saying that it is a reasonable proposal when Brandon proposes it? Are there also some other scary implications beyond it? Well, I think there are some other scary implications beyond it. But just like on the broadest terms, this is literally an identical proposal, very close to what Hamas has suggested time and time again. All right, let's continue, though. Let's hear what he has to
neighborhoods in
say.
all areas of Gaza including in the north. Humanitarian assistance would surge, with 600 trucks carrying aid into Gaza every single day. With a ceasefire, that aid could be safely and effectively distributed.
By the way, I think part of the aid problem, I've been thinking about the pier a lot. I've been wondering, why would they try to rebuild the pier when the pier itself is bringing in no fucking aid? Okay? And I think, personally, the reason why they built the pier was so that they could at least aesthetically claim something to counter the Leahy law, a law that dictates that no country in contravention of human rights laws will ever receive American weapons. And I think the reason why they built the pier was to at the very least say, oh, well, Israel let us build a pier so that we can actually have humanitarian aid flow through it, even though the reality is they're shutting down the crossings, the border crossings, so that they can significantly reduce the number of aid trucks that are going into Gaza. That, like, how can you say Israel is actually stopping the aid from going in? They let us build the pier and the aid can come in through the pier. And I think that's the reason why they like so desperately hold on to this pier. Many people personally think like, oh, it's just for aesthetics. I think there's a more nefarious reason for it. And I think that nefarious reason isn't that like they're sending, weapon shipments through the pier. That's silly. I think you're wrong about that. I think the real nefarious reason is that it has to be, there has to be something tangible that they can point to say Israel is trying its best to bring in aid. Okay? I think that's what it is. Because otherwise, there is no ass covering that you can give Israel in this situation. If there's no other way of entry, if there's no other entry for aid, and Israel controls all of the aid that goes in, then it's directly in the hands of Israel, which is a violation of human rights law. Not letting in aid is such a direct violation of human rights law and an act of egregious collective punishment that even the guy, the Holocaust survivor dude who created the Human Rights Watch, who was not only a Zionist, but also someone who was against the ICJ court case, okay, post October 7, he openly recognizes that he was wrong and has changed his mind on Israel's actions. Okay? The dude who created the Human Rights Watch, who said he was against the South African ICJ court case against Israel doing a genocide, said, no, now I believe Israel is doing a genocide. Why? Because Israel is refusing to send in aid to Gaza. Because that is a clear-cut, definitional violation of international rights, human rights, okay? There is no other way to go around it. And that is a direct violation of the Leahy law in this country, okay? We have a law in the books that if a country is in direct violation of human rights law, international humanitarian law, they cannot get weapons. And I personally think that's why they wanted to desperately hold on to the fucking pier so they could say, oh, well, Israel is trying to make an honest effort to bring in aid, actually. Why isn't anyone doing anything then if they're directly violating human rights? No, I'm saying like even they have to cook the books a little bit. Okay, obviously they don't give a shit about Israel violating human rights law, humanitarian rights. I mean humanitarian law. I'm not saying that they give a shit about the humanity of it. It's not actually about the morality of it. It's the legality of it. Okay? Anyway, for people who are still trying to bait me at the top of the hour, I already ran the 3-minute ad break, guys. So stop. I know it was because someone tried to debate me literally 8 minutes before the top of the hour. That really doesn't add up. The State Department already doctored a report saying Israel wasn't doing human rights violations. No. That report that the State Department came up with was specifically about American weapons being used during Israeli hostilities that may or may not violate international humanitarian law or may constitute war crimes. And that report in and of itself also said, well, we still need Israel to conduct personal self-investigations. They may have done war crimes with our weapons. What I'm talking about is something different. Obviously, there's a lot of rules in conducting yourself in war. There are rules about what targets you can hit. There are rules about what the civilian casualty to like enemy combatant casualty percentages need to look like. Israel's violating all of them. That's one thing. But there's also another side of this. When you are the dominant force, when you're the belligerent, you, for example, like safe zones, right? If you design a safe zone, there are very specific qualifications that you need to uphold for said safe zone, which is why Israel doesn't say it's a safe zone, but says it's a safer zone. Okay? Because a safe zone means there's clean water there. A safe zone means that it will not be attacked. Okay? Israel knowingly will not call it a safe zone because they know they're going to, eventually blow it up like they did in Rafah. Okay? Now, another major no-no is obviously refusing to let aid in. Because aid is going to the civilian population. Aid is going to a civilian population. And if you're stopping aid from going into a civilian population, then it's over. You are in direct violation of international human rights laws. Yesterday, it was leaked by Channel 12 that Bibi's NatSec Council head, Zahi Hanegbi, told the hostage, oh yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. The hostage family's conversation is going to be had as well. But let's continue.
All who need it. Hundreds of thousands of temporary shelters, including housing units, would be delivered by the international community. All that and more would begin immediately. During the 6 weeks of phase one, Israel and Hamas would negotiate the necessary arrangements to get to phase two, which is a permanent end to hostilities. Now, I'll be straight with you. There are a number of details to negotiate to move from phase one to phase two. Israel will want to make sure its interests are protected. But the proposal says if the negotiations take longer than 6 weeks for phase one, the ceasefire will still continue as long as negotiations continue. In the United States, Egypt and Qatar would work to ensure negotiations keep going. All agreements, until all the agreements are reached and phase two is able to begin. Then phase two would be an exchange for the release of all remaining living hostages, including male soldiers. Israeli forces would withdraw from Gaza. And as long as Hamas lives up to its commitments, a temporary ceasefire would become, in the words of the Israeli proposal, the cessation of hostilities permanently. End of quote. Cessation of hostilities.
It's crazy, man. It's verbatim the fucking Hamas proposal all the way back in February. During the first 45-day phase, all Israeli women hostages, males under 19, the elderly and sick would be released in exchange for female and underage Palestinian security prisoners in Israeli jails. Israel would withdraw troops from the populated areas. Implementation of the second phase would not begin until the sides conclude indirect talks over the requirements needed to end the mutual military operations and return to complete calm. The second phase would include the release of the remaining male hostages and full Israeli withdrawal from all of Gaza. Bodies and remains would be exchanged during the third phase. By the end of the third phase, Hamas would expect the sides to have reached an agreement to an end to the war. The terror group, which governs Gaza, said in an addendum that the proposal sought to release 1,500 prisoners from Israeli jails, a third of whom it wanted to select from a list of Palestinians serving life sentences. The truce would also increase the flow of food trucks and other humanitarian aid to Gaza at a rate of no fewer than 500 trucks per day. Lebanese news outlet Al Akhbar, thought to have ties to Hezbollah, also said it has seen a counterproposal from Hamas, apparently including an addendum with far greater detail on the first phase of the proposal. If this deal that Biden is presenting to you if this deal that Biden is presenting to you seems familiar, it's because it's verbatim almost. Here's what Hamas said, by the way, after this deal. Hamas issued a statement saying it looks positively at what was included in President Biden's speech, mainly his call for a permanent ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip, reconstruction, and an exchange of prisoners. The movement affirms its position of readiness to deal positively and constructively with any proposal based on a permanent ceasefire, complete withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, reconstruction, and the return of the displaced to all their places of residence, and the completion of a serious prisoner exchange deal if the occupation declares its explicit commitment to that. So what happened in the time frame between February 7th or whatever and now? Well, thousands of more Palestinians were ruthlessly slaughtered. Hundreds of Palestinian homes were bombed into oblivion. Rafah happened. Hundreds of civilians in Rafah were mercilessly executed with American weapons. And during that time frame, domestic pressure increased, international pressure increased. The ICC openly came out with a court case against the war cabinet, or at least two prominent members of the war cabinet in Israel. Biden even suggested a red line that he never really enforced and lied about enforcing. So America coming out with this statement is pretty strong. It is kind of even stronger than the Biden red line, the Rafah red line, which he never really actually enforced at all. So one must ask, why is America coming out with this? This is the question. This is the question at hand. It's crazy because they've been saying they've been a million war cabinet meetings of Bibi being as clear as possible. Y'all do not have the mandate to end the war. We're not ending the war. It's not happening, guys. And it's all over Israeli media. In general, Biden is counting on that reporting staying localized. Once again, Brandon's coming out with a statement. And for the most part, as far as we've seen, the Israeli government has said the exact opposite of said statement. So we'll see. Not, I guess, in general. There was a statement made from Bibi after Biden's speech. Biden's speech, Prime Minister says Israeli proposal would bring about Hamas's end and the release of all hostages. In a statement issued immediately after U.S. President Joe Biden's speech calling on Hamas to accept the latest hostage deal proposal and Israel's leader to stand behind it, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office says the Israeli government is united in the desire to return our hostages as soon as possible and is working to achieve this goal. Except yesterday, the hostage family's working negotiator, this is from yesterday, or well, I guess this morning, Israel won't end war for deal to free all hostages, Prime Minister's aide said to tell families. National Security Advisor Hasanabi says it will be possible to free female, elderly, and sick hostages in the coming months, but warns effort to release remainder unlikely to succeed. So why is National Security Advisor Zachi Hasanabi saying this moments before Benjamin Netanyahu says, oh yeah, we will actually release the hostages? The current government will not agree to end its war against Hamas in exchange for the release of all the remaining hostages held by the terror group, he said. The message, made during a heated meeting during which Hasanabi reportedly rebuked and insulted the relatives of several hostages, apparently calling them drama queens and yelling at them, appeared to be the first time a top Israeli official was quoted making such an admission. That's really interesting because their actions are, in my opinion, way more powerful than the supposed quotes that they would make directly to fucking hostage families. Because Benjamin Netanyahu can wear the fucking yellow ribbon that means, like, you know, release our hostages, bring them home all day, every day. But his actions say something entirely different. He's trying to kill them for the crime of being next to Palestinians. And they've killed them directly. As we know, 3 of the Israeli hostages were begging for their lives, and the IDF shot and killed them. One of them literally escaped the shooting and was yelling at them like, "I'm Israeli, please don't shoot." And they killed him anyway because he didn't sufficiently look Israeli enough, I guess. So it seems like their actions are in direct violation of the statements that they claim to care about, because hostages were never an actual thing that the Israeli government cared about, because Israel hates Arabs and Palestinians more than they love security for Israeli Jews. Okay? The quicker you understand this, the easier it is for you to make sense of it all. Where can I read about that? Which one? The fact that Israel directly shot 3 hostages, aside from bombing however many hostages that have been killed so far? Just Google it. Not only that, I don't understand what Hamas stands to gain with this. I'm going to explain that in a second. Not only that, but you didn't have to look that far. You didn't have to look for a month of Israeli siege on Gaza to start understanding this reality. You could have looked at October 7. On October 7, the first act from the Israeli government wasn't to immediately secure communities that are on the Gaza envelope. It was to start immediately bombing Gaza. That should have been a pretty clear indication that they do not give a fuck about the hostages. And then further reporting came out that Israeli helicopters shot at both hostages and also those with Palestinian, like directly Israeli citizens and Palestinians that had Palestinian resistance groups that had taken hostages. Israeli tanks rolled into kibbutzim and blew up houses full of Israelis that were sheltering from the attacks. This all corresponds to, of course, the Hannibal Directive, which dictates that a live hostage in the hands of the Palestinian resistance is far too valuable, and therefore they're better off dead, which is why Israel's own military objective is to kill the hostage alongside however many Palestinian resistance groups, individuals they can kill, because a hostage means there's a bargaining chip, a point of power to negotiate, because the family members selfishly will go and pressure the Israeli government to return the hostage. Just something to consider. The Hannibal Directive is an anti-Semitic hoax. This message is brought to you by the ADL. Yeah, totally. As far as the question goes, where was it? I don't understand what Hamas stands to gain with all this. Well, since October 7, they have very openly communicated their desires. October 7 was far more successful from their vision, from their perspective, than they ever thought it would be. That's number one. Number two is they thought they would nab a couple people in the forward operating base that they went into, or the surveillance base that they went into, kill a couple IDF people, and then quick in and out, maybe maximum 20 to 50 IDF hostages, and they're done. The security failure on October 7 caused tremendous commotion inside of Israel, allowed even criminal elements to enter into Israel proper, allowed random Palestinian civilians to enter Israel proper. And the death toll was far larger, including the death of 800 civilians. Okay? Nobody expected, Israeli citizens and Hamas and Palestinian resistance groups did not expect there to be no fucking security at the border whatsoever. This is why earlier in October, one of the major points of contention for me, something that I regularly talked about, was the arrogance, the hubris of the Zionist entity causing its own demise, both politically at the global stage with the amount of bloodshed that they've caused that they think will not help them lose favor in the international, in the sights of the global community and the international community, but also that arrogance and that sheer hubris, that dehumanization that they personally believed that the Arab mind is simply not capable of conducting military operations that could harm Israeli citizens' lives, caused them to remove protection from the fucking border, move them over to the West Bank to further dominate the West Bank. This was a major security flaw, which caused the death toll to be much larger. But as far as the Hamas goals goes, since October 7, they've openly communicated that their desires are to A, build a port in Gaza and engage in immediate cessation of hostilities, and last but not least, do a full-blown hostage release, a hostage swap for Palestinian prisoners currently being unjustifiably detained in Israeli detention facilities, including high-profile Palestinian prisoners, and also random Palestinian civilians that have been unjustifiably detained and held hostage. That was their three major goals. And they've made, I believe, around 30 plus, if not 39 negotiations since, calling for a cessation of hostilities and putting forward hostage release negotiations since October 7, including at certain points unconditional release of all Israeli prisoners for the cessation of hostilities, for a ceasefire. Israel denied every single one of them. And in that 8-month time frame, the hostage families and other Israelis started recognizing that, yeah, while we do want to kill as many Palestinians as possible, holy shit, you're killing all of the hostages. You need to fucking calm down. What? And now they have openly mentioned it directly to the hostage families, that they do not give a fuck about the hostages. How do we use this clear objection to rescuing hostage by Bibi to respond to Zionists who say all eyes on hostages, save the hostages, etc.? Like, how can we get Zionists to understand that you cannot both support Bibi's war strategy and to claim to care about the hostages? In the Western world, it's going to be impossible to make those who defend Israel understand that Israel doesn't give a shit about the hostages, because I don't think they care about the hostages either. I think that because they are not directly related to said hostages, or maybe some might be, they are far removed from thinking about the humanity of the hostages and care more about Israel's military objective. Why are we acting like all of Israel was on a day off and Hamas didn't do a thing to get over the wall? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply stating that the amount of security that normally is supposed to be on that border that people take for granted was definitely not there. Some of the troops had been directed to operate in the West Bank instead. This does not mean that there weren't any fucking military activity on the border at all. It simply means that they were immediately overwhelmed. Another goal, as is the stated goal of any sort of action against Israeli military or even civilians, is to make the occupation feel costly. Because anytime civilians die or anytime soldiers die, that creates political pressure for the Israeli cabinet, for the Israeli war cabinet, but also for the Israeli government in general. That is the political aim of all Palestinian resistance groups, is to remind Israel that you cannot keep maintaining this apartheid, which is inherently unjust and inherently violent, without incurring some kind of penalty for it. And the penalty being that maybe your civilians won't feel comfortable. Maybe your population won't feel comfortable. They'll have to run into a fucking bunker when the bomb sirens go off in Israel proper. That is the goal. The goal is to say, we're still here, you're still killing us, and you can't do it without penalty. That was the overarching objective of October 7 as well. And no, I do not believe that October 7 is an inside job. I don't. I think it's just hubris. It is just pure hubris. It is Israeli government officials and military officials thinking, or rather believing their own fucking propaganda about the inhumanity and the barbaric nature of the Palestinian Arab. That they are simply too uncivilized to be able to conduct a fucking real military operation that could ever harm Israeli civilians. They got complacent and comfortable with their surveillance technology. They got complacent and comfortable with everything that they had done to maintain the apartheid, thinking that no one could ever defy the apartheid. And I think that their reaction to October 7, the immediate reaction to October 7, was also out of that same Zionist project. The notion that you have one speed. You just don't even think about the Israeli civilians. You don't think about the babies. You don't think about the children. You don't think about anybody and anything at all. You only think about punishing Arabs across the board. I can only speak. That's just the idea of rules of engagement in urban areas too. When you enter a building, you go in shooting. You shoot anything that moves. It's genocidal. I can only speak from experiences with Israelis. However, many have this biblical notion that the military pressure will bring them home. It takes a lot of work to dismantle, and in a lot of ways, you need to have them walk through the logic themselves. Like, what interest does Hamas have in releasing the hostages if the war doesn't end? If they don't regain control of Gaza, the next best thing is the continuation of their political strengthening that comes with the war. There was a fuck ton of people in Hawara and very few on the border. The hog bibis definitely won't, but some who aren't as dedicated to his cult of personality have still absorbed that logic, and you can get to them. Or you're 100% spot on. There is no other war, lol. There's only Bibi's war. Okay, stop talking to each other. No more sharing notes. In the you got to share it with the class. What is happening? Okay. Check link. Anyway, just something to consider. This is why I've been yelling about the nefarious, cynical, gross way in which those who defend the Zionist project have consistently talked about the motherfucking hostages as though they give a single shit, as the Israeli government's military actions in the Gaza Strip is shredding them by the fucking hundreds. Okay? If you gave a fuck about the hostages, you would literally be demanding a ceasefire instantly. anyone who stands against that proposal does not care about the hostages. Israeli hostages, I mean. Oh my God. Breaking news. Gilad Erdogan, to end tenure as UN envoy, declines the offer to stay in U.S. as Washington ambassador. Oh no, all of our goats are gone. My goats. Mister, if you don't let me do genocide in Gaza, you are doing my own personal Holocaust. That man. All of our colorful personalities are getting dropped left and right. And now Erdogan? What the fuck? Bro. We lost Eylon Levy to a potato. We lost Jonathan Concuncrius. And now Gilad Erdogan. Devastating news. In 2017, where Erdogan was NATSEC minister, he ordered his police to move in and demolish a Bedouin village in the Negev. The police were met with protesters and ended up murdering a 47-year-old math teacher while he was leaving because he couldn't watch his house get destroyed. Then they proceeded to claim he was in ISIS. No cops were ever punished, obviously. Bibi only apologized to the family 3 years later during his corruption shit, saying, the man was falsely accused of his crimes. He just like me. God, Israeli politics is so insane. Here's what Ben had to say about this proposal, by the way. Biden's outline of the supposed hostage ceasefire deal as proposed is clearly trash. There's literally zero chance that the Israeli government proposed this deal from the Biden deal in the form Biden articulates. No Israeli government could propose leaving Hamas as the government of Gaza, as this deal does. If any Israeli government did, it would bring down the government immediately. Furthermore, Biden is a liar. The idea that members of the Israeli government don't care about the hostages is a vicious falsehood designed to throw support behind Hamas or to collapse the government from within, which is Biden's real goal. Biden saying that Israel must not pursue total victory over Hamas is absolutely outrageous. Those are the words of an imbecile and a moral coward. Stating that leaving Hamas in place somehow brings enduring peace is Orwellian in its evil. Let's get back to this Biden is Hamas guy.
Hostilities permanently. Finally, in phase 3, a major reconstruction plan for Gaza would commence. And any final remains of hostages.
What? Their message got deleted by Fossabot? I'm a Palestinian citizen of Israel, and there's something important to mention. Did you know that the girl from the Negev who was injured by shrapnel during the Iranian attack is now in the hospital? Her condition is very critical between life and death, and her house was also damaged in the attack while she was now in the hospital. An order was accepted to demolish her house, like a lot of the houses in the Negev right now. The only democratic country in the Middle East, my ass. Oh, yeah, we talked about this. Also, it's ironic because, like, this person posting this is, like, directly illegal in Israel. Fossabot timed them out, but, like, what they're doing right now, posting this shit as a Palestinian citizen of Israel, could get him in trouble with the Israeli authorities. It's not even a joke. The very same beacon of democracy, Israel, has arrested people for less.
Who've been killed would be returned to their families. That's the offer that's now on the table. And what we've been asking for. It's what we need. The people of Israel should know they can make this offer without any further risk to their own security because they've devastated Hamas forces over the past 8 months. At this point, Hamas no longer is capable of carrying out another October 7th. It's one of Israel's main objectives in this war, and quite frankly, a righteous one. I know there are those in Israel who will not agree with this plan and will call for the war to continue indefinitely. Some are even in the government coalition. And they've made it clear they want to occupy Gaza, they want to keep fighting for years, and the hostages are not a priority to them. Well, I've urged the leadership in Israel to stand behind this deal, despite whatever pressure comes. And to the people of Israel, let me say this. As someone who's had a lifelong commitment to Israel, as the only American president who's ever gone to Israel in a time of war, as someone who just sent the U.S. forces to directly defend Israel when it was attacked by Iran, I ask you to take a step back and think what will happen if this moment is lost. We can't lose this moment. Indefinite war in pursuit of an unidentified notion of total victory will not bring Israel, will only bog down Israel and Gaza, draining the economic, military, and human resources, and furthering Israel.
He's been the most coherent in a while. Bro, it's because I sped him up. This is what he actually sounds like.
Isolation in the world. That will not bring hostages home. That will not bring an enduring defeat of Hamas. That will not bring Israel lasting security. But a comprehensive approach that starts with this deal will bring hostages home and will lead to more secure Israel.
Bro, this fucking proposal could have been addressed early October. What changed? What changed, Brandon? Now, the real question is, what will you do to follow through if Israel says fuck you to this? Which it seems like it probably will. That's the real question. You didn't enforce a red line in Rafah. What will you do to enforce this proposal? His poll numbers are what changed. I mean, his poll numbers have been disastrous. He's just refusing to recognize it.
And once a ceasefire and hostage deal is concluded,
I think this will backfire on Israel again. Just like the red line. I've been covering this shit nonstop, super fucking close, as you guys know. And one thing I've been trying to figure out is what changed in the eyes of the American public that white women started posting about all eyes on Rafah. Even if it's a fucking AI image, okay? And I think it's partially because Biden mistakenly said, I have a red line on Rafah, which caused a lot of the Democrats to jump early and basically turn around and go, oh yeah, Biden is doing something. And then they even went forward with with one ammunition deployment, stopping like one singular fucking ammo dump. So it caused people to go, oh, wait, we can say no to Israel. Never mind. Not at all. We have eyes. Wait, what? What are you still fucking chirping about, generally speaking? You haven't shut the fuck up all day, okay? I already showed you Tulsi Gabbard is a relentless Israel dick rider. We see the genocide? No, my point is they didn't... Okay, before Rafah, there was a genocide still. Okay, I know you agree with me on Israel, but it doesn't matter. Even before Rafah, there was a genocide. What I'm trying to say is, what actually changed that, like, you saw another wave of support? And I think it's because Brandon said that there was a red line. Republicans started chirping at him. Americans immediately fell back into their comfortable political polarization, saw Republicans on television be like, no, we have to unconditionally support Israel. And for a brief moment, it felt like the Democrats weren't unconditionally dick riding Israel. Just for a brief second. We obviously understand that that was bullshit to begin with. But many people, for the first time ever, saw, oh, okay, you can do restrictions. Like, it gave people the permission to go, oh, yeah, we could restrict Israel a little bit. And I think the reason why Rafah changed the equation a little bit is because this dumb fuck said that there was a red line and stopped one weapons shipment. One! which I think could have been done months ago. And I think that's the reason why you started seeing all the Barbers and the Deborahs fucking post about Rafah. And all of the content creators and all of the celebrities that you didn't hear anything from for months come out and basically lean on the crowd and go, oh, we are all united on this. Now we can actually say it. I think that's what it is. As someone who follows the shit closely, that's my only, this is a speculation, of course, but this is what I think. What I now think is that this additional move that Israel might violate again will cause even more people to get mad at Israel. Okay? Because if Israel does what Israel does all the time, and they have stated that they have an intention of staying in Gaza until 2025, at least January 2025, I think if Israel follows along with that agenda of total victory, even more Barbaras and Deborahs are going to get involved and say, that's crazy. We're done. This is over. It's done. Israel does not understand the power that the Swifties have. I know it sounds stupid to say it like that, but it's something that I've brought up earlier in this conflict, in this genocide, which many yelled at me about. But I understand the power that white women hold. Okay? This motherfucking government is going after Ticketmaster. When's the last time they actually effectively prosecuted a monopoly, man? Are you fucking kidding me? The only time that these guys actually work against capital is when the Swifties are on board. And now you got fucking Swifties saying Taylor Swift say something about Gaza. I'm half joking when I say this. So does Biden get credit for doing the right thing after people pressured him? We know pressure works. Doing this deal is good. I was happy when I saw it. Am I dumb? No, I mean, I'm not going to fucking give Biden any credit for this. This is 36,000 dead children on his hands. I would have given him credit if he did this in October. Fuck it, November. But I am not the average voter. I'm not the median voter. I'm not going to be the same person that might be swayed to vote for Joseph Robinette Brandon come November. Many people have a different calculation than myself. Disagree, it's TikTok who's causing all this. Man, TikTok has been chirping about fucking Gaza, and it's very powerful of a tool to motivate people and to change people's minds. I'm not discounting TikTok at all. I'm saying what changed between Rafah and before Rafah. Pre-Rafah, pre-tent massacre, there was a lot of buildup, a lot of momentum, but it seemingly went nowhere. Post-Rafah, post-tent massacre, something legitimately changed. I say this as someone who only has the capacity to view this from, my own personal framework, my own personal perspective. Do you understand? Yeah. TikTok has been literally up Israel's ass for the past 8 months, so much so that Congress moved to ban it and openly stated, we're banning it because we can't control TikTok and the kids are pro-Hamas now. Student encampments didn't do it. The Flower Massacre didn't do it. The World Central Kitchen aid workers being killed didn't do it. So why did the tent massacre do it? That's my question. That's all I'm stating. I think it was the headless baby that did it. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if everyone saw the headless baby. I think that played a role in it. But I think the major role is that when no matter how hard we try as a collective, both on TikTok, no matter how hard we try to mobilize grassroots, we still do not have a fraction of the influence that the government has and mainstream media has. Okay? They can, like, it's as if they fire on all cylinders. When they make a statement, it's far more consequential. That's why I think Biden's change of pace, even remotely in the direction of seemingly punishing Israel or seemingly demanding Israel dial it back a little bit, caused this massive sea change. I think Biden said it, Rafah is the red line. People saw babies being slaughtered in Rafah, and we're like, what the fuck? Where's your red line now? Anyway, it doesn't really matter ultimately because things are really fucked up regardless. But the only reason why I talked about this is because I think Biden coming out with this statement is massive as well. And I personally think that this, depending on how Israel moves from this point on, if Israel does what Israel has been doing, will cause its downfall completely, like utter destruction of the Israeli political apparatus in its entirety. If Israel follows through on the proposal, I mean, Netanyahu is over no matter what, but maybe they can return to like some semblance of liberal Zionism under Benny Gantz's leadership. That's it. That's my take.
It unlocks the possibility of a great deal more progress, including calm along Israel's northern border with Lebanon. The United States will help forge a diplomatic resolution, one that ensures Israel's security and allows people to safely return to their homes without fear of being attacked. With the deal, a rebuilding of Gaza will begin. Arab nations and the international community, along with Palestinian and Israeli leaders, to get it done in a manner that does not allow Hamas to rearm. And the United States will work with our partners to rebuild homes, schools, and hospitals in Gaza, to help repair communities that were destroyed in the chaos of war. And with this deal, Israel could become more deeply integrated in the region, including, it's no surprise to you all, including potential historic normalization agreement with Saudi Arabia. Israel could be part of a regional security network to counter the threat posed by Iran. All this progress would make Israel more secure, with Israeli families no longer living in the shadow of a terrorist attack. And all this would create the conditions for a different future, a better future for the Palestinian people, one of self-determination, dignity, security, and freedom. This path is available once the deal is struck. Israel will always have the right to defend itself against the threats to its security and to bring those responsible for October 7th to justice. And the United States will always ensure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself. If Hamas fails to fulfill its commitments under the deal, Israel can resume military operations. But Egypt and Qatar have assured me, and they are continuing to work to ensure that Hamas doesn't do that. The United States will help ensure that Israel lives up to their obligations as well. That's what this deal says. That's what it says. And we'll do our part. This is truly a decisive moment. Israel has made their proposal. Hamas says it wants a ceasefire. This deal is an opportunity to prove whether they really mean it. Hamas needs to take the deal. For months, people all over the world have called for a ceasefire. Now it's time to raise your voices and demand that Hamas come to the table, agrees to this deal, and end this war that they began. Of course, there'll be differences on the specific details that need to be worked out. That's natural. If Hamas comes to negotiate, ready to deal, then Israel negotiations must be given a mandate, the necessary flexibility to close that deal.
Wait, what?
Ready to deal, that's natural. If Hamas comes to negotiate, ready to deal, then Israel negotiations must be given a mandate, the necessary flexibility to close that deal.
Wait.
It says it wants to see, we'll do our part. This is truly a decisive moment. Israel has made their proposal. Hamas says it wants a ceasefire. This deal is an opportunity to prove whether they really mean it. Hamas needs to take the deal.
Where did he say it? Wait.
For months, people all over the world have called for ceasefire. Now it's time to raise your voices and demand that Hamas come to the table.
Bro, what? Bro. Yo.
To raise your voices and demand that Hamas come to the table.
The fuck? Is okay. I mean, what the okay, dude? I mean, it's just you just accidentally said it, dude. He just stuttered, bro. He's not saying like I need to get over there. This is how we find out that Brandon and his team have been watching. Brandon and his team have been watching nonstop. Joe Brandon was an old school Hasanabi head.
Agrees to this deal and ends this war that they began.
It's crazy that he's saying that like Hamas come to the table and end this war that they began. It's like, bro, what are you talking about? You are number one, directly verbatim proposing their proposal, like exactly the identical one since like February. Two, they've had numerous proposals from the jump since early October that Israel has said no to. What planet is this motherfucker living on?
Of course, there'll be differences on the specific details that need to be worked out. That's natural. If Hamas comes to negotiate, ready to deal, then Israel negotiations must be given a mandate, the necessary flexibility to close that deal. The past 8 months have marked heartbreaking pain. Pain of those whose loved ones are slaughtered by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. Hostages and their families waiting in anguish. Ordinary Israelis whose lives were forever marked by the shattering event of Hamas's sexual violence and ruthless brutality. And the Palestinian people have endured sheer hell in this war. Too many innocent people have been killed, including thousands of children. Far too many have been badly wounded. We all saw the terrible images from the deadly fire in Rafah earlier this week, following an Israeli strike against targeting Hamas. And even as we work to surge assistance to Gaza, with 1,800 trucks delivering supplies these last 5 days, 1,800, the humanitarian crisis still remains. I know this is a subject on which people in this country feel deep, passionate convictions, and so do I. This has been one of the hardest, most complicated problems in the world. There's nothing easy about this, nothing easy about it. Through it all, though, the United States has worked relentlessly to support Israeli security, to get humanitarian supplies into Gaza, to get a ceasefire and a hostage deal to bring this war to an end. Yesterday, with this new initiative, we've taken an important step in that direction. I want to level with you today as to where we are and what might be possible. But I need your help. Everyone who wants peace now must raise their voices and let the leaders know they should take this deal, work to make it real, make it lasting, and forge a better future out of the tragic terror attack and war. It's time to begin this new stage. For the hostages to come home.
I think the border incident with Egypt might have had an additional effect on top of the Rafah massacre. Oh, politically speaking, yes. I wasn't talking about that. I was only talking about like the public pressure and why it changed a little bit. And if you've been paying close attention since October 7, you probably also noticed a major shift happening, like far greater than even after the war, after the World Central Kitchen massacre, even after the Flower massacre, like far greater. Post Rafah, it was genuinely shocking how many Americans all of a sudden were like caught up to speed functionally, even if they weren't actually caught up to speed. I already talked about it. Hamas said yes to this and said, this is great. We're on board. They said that they look positively to this, of course. Why wouldn't they? The proposal is identically fucking ripped from one of their prior proposals. So I don't really understand what changed. Hamas states it views Biden's proposal for enduring ceasefire positively. Israel PM, we will continue the war until our objectives are met. Western officials, Hamas need to accept the ceasefire deal. Yeah. I wonder why they're doing that. It's just odd.